What's up, Resource Nation? Welcome to another edition of the Masterclass Series, and I'm super excited because we have a friend of the show back on again, Kristin Messerli. I'm so excited to have her, founder of Cultural Outreach, national speaker now, goes everywhere. It's got probably hundreds of, or thousands of gigs under your belt. You speak to, I don't know, I lost count. I started counting all the companies on your website, and there were just too many. But you basically are speaking to everywhere, everyone. You're traveling everywhere. So thanks for taking time to be with us today, because I thought your HousingWire article was amazing.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be back on the show.
Yeah. So where are you at today? You're in LA, is that right?
I am in LA, about to head to San Francisco.
Nice. So we have you for a little bit, and you've kind of seen our show, right? We shot a show about the article, kind of threw our take in there, and that's kind of what I want to dig in today. So this was, I believe, you just became a columnist for HousingWire. This is your actual first article as a columnist, and I told you off camera, like, wow, you set the bar high, so good luck with that. But talk to us about that story, because it was so amazing. Like, where did that come from? Why this topic, especially for your first columnist article for HousingWire? Talk to us about that.
Well, I was really excited because, first of all, HousingWire gave me full freedom to be able to talk about what I wanted to talk about. And I've been thinking about this topic for a really long time. I mean, ever since really I started my business, and we started working with a lot of underserved markets and millennials on how to reach them. And I just saw so many parallels with the populations that I worked with as a social worker previously. And I worked in different countries and worked a lot in underserved markets and a lot with traumatized youth as well. And everyone, we followed a model that I talk about in the article called trauma-informed care. And but as I started looking at our business model with cultural outreach and how we help lenders with reaching underserved markets and millennials, there were just so many parallels. And so I started thinking about why that was, and like some of those parallels being the way that people respond to money or talk about money, the way that people are either avoidant about it or reckless, or and how important it is to build trust with those populations. And when I started thinking about it, I realized, for millennials and underserved markets, they've faced so many traumatic events around financial services that, of course, they're going to respond in a similar way. And so when we apply that same model of trauma-informed care to financial services, I think it just overlays perfectly and really fits the methods that you and I have always been talking about in terms of reaching the next generation through trust, transparency, and personalization, that kind of thing.
Yeah. It was really good, and we dug in more about the origin stories just because that's kind of been my year so far this year, is kind of digging into that, and it's, we're working to tell that story. That's going to be a little bit longer story, but it really is. I mean, these are impactful situations at a young age to go through, and that's what we were trying to say. Like, we've learned that ourselves, but we haven't really, and you're kind of really the first one to shed a light on, hey, these guys were a young, impressionable age. And that's going to be difficult for them to work through. It's going to be difficult for real estate professionals to speak in a manner that they can hear and really hear at their heart level. So I'm going to dig into that later, but I want to talk about kind of before all of this. I mean, did all of this come naturally? I mean, you're obviously very smart, well-spoken, great speaker, very successful. You travel, work with many different companies. Does all of this just come natural for you? Have you always been this way, this good? Did success just like fall in your lap? Like, take me back.
Thank you for saying that. But no, I really worked very hard at that, especially speaking and putting myself out there. When I first started my business, I really was just doing it around community organizing. Like, I was thinking about my social work experience and how I was connecting businesses and nonprofits and all that kind of stuff, and doing translation and training with a lot of different industries. And I started doing that with the for-profit side. And as I was doing that, I realized that it was really important that I speak in front of people, and that I talk to people and do more public presentations. And so when I first started, I would just be like shaking basically. And I could not, it was a big deal to speak in front of just a few people. And but I went through a business internship program at a university where I was starting my graduate program, and I was just terrified. They would like put me in front of people and buzz me every time I said, or, would
Really?
have me, yeah. And it was just this crazy, like, put yourself out there and you got to fake it till you make it kind of experience. And especially when I started my business, then right after that, I was still terrified getting in front of people, but I knew I had to do that in order to grow my business. And so I had lots of embarrassing moments and lots of times thinking, well, that was the worst thing that could ever happen on stage. I just fumbled over my words or whatever. And, but you keep going. And the more that I focused on my internal work, like personal work, around building confidence in myself or feeling good about who I am and like building that kind of authentic energy, that's when things really took a turn for the better. And people respond so much to, your authentic heart. And so that was really, starting out was really difficult, but you just kind of keep going.
Right. What's crazy, if you know Kristin, she's very passionate about what she's doing. This isn't just, in my opinion, and knowing you and watching, this isn't just a job. Like, I don't feel like this is an accident that you're doing what you're doing and you're traveling and speaking on the topics that you speak to. And in the article, it's so hard to convey passion in the written word. I mean, when you and I talk, if I get excited, you can see that. If I get sad, you can see that, right? Passion is easily conveyed through video, but your passion, which is kudos to you and your writing, came through in the article itself. And that's so awesome and so difficult. Where did that passion, like, go back even further? Where's the origin story there for that passion? Because it obviously comes through at a high level.
Yeah, I mean, I actually really think it comes down to just your first question around how, I don't know, building your personal power. And when I started as a social worker, I had also been through some traumatic things, and it was just, I don't know, just learning those things that give you back personal power, where that was part of my journey as a social worker. But one of the biggest areas of that is building wealth and realizing how to help others, connect others with services or businesses that will help them build wealth or gain knowledge that allows them to have more power. Knowledge and wealth are both very, very powerful things. And so I think as I grew as a social worker, community organizer, and then later as a business owner, that just continues to really fuel me to think, how far I have come and how important it is for everyone to be able to find their own, like be knowledgeable and informed enough to be able to make smart decisions for themselves. And that's why I'm really passionate about, transparency and having full access to your options, whether that be when it comes to homeownership or your health or whatever, but being able to make those decisions for yourself and walk confidently in that is not only transformative to your bank account and all that kind of stuff, but to your personal life.
Yeah. I got a question, curious your response, and it's from the article again. And we talked about on our show, kind of covering your article about origin stories and how powerful they are, impactful, how deeply rooted those stories are, then how they eventually kind of shape who we become over time. Do you believe millennials can change or evolve their original opinion or experience on the housing market that, as you wrote, was that of kind of fear? Do you think that can evolve or change to what many other generations view the housing market is security? Do you think that can happen, or are those origin stories going to be so difficult to overcome that's always going to be something in the back of their mind?
Yeah, I mean, I actually think by following, some of those elements of that model that I outlined, like that's how we change that feeling around fear in the housing market. So the more that people have transparency and are able to see their personal, access to building wealth through homeownership and see what a 30-year fix. Like a lot of people I talk to don't even realize that there's 30-year fixed rates. I mean, there's just that lack of information out there is really holding people back. But it's the fear of even looking for that information or talking to someone that's preventing that. But I think, I think if you think about your money story, a lot of how you relate to money is really set in stone by the time you're pretty young, and so a lot of those things will always be rooted in us. But I think that the more that we are able to see, it's not just like this vague thing out there that the housing market or homeownership or whatever, the more that we're able to see practically how that relates to us and what it would look like for us to enter that journey, the more that we can shift that lens.
Yeah. I don't know if that fear ever goes away just because of the stories that I shared on the show last week. Because just in my experience and seeing leaders that are older and more experienced than I am, that never left them. It's still there. I don't know that means that millennials won't be homeowners because of that. I think that leveraging I think there was 5 principles that you outlined. Leveraging those principles will help. But I think it's always going to be there because every other origin story that I know of is always there. It doesn't mean it's going to go to the extreme of never being a homeowner, but it's going to be there. And it's why I want to finish with this question, why real estate professionals watching and reading that story, it is so important that we pivot because we are an aged industry of real estate professionals and lenders. And there's a big gap between the generations that are kind of in this industry now and millennials. And so I'm concerned, I'm hopeful, I'm curious how you feel. Do you believe that older industry vet that's in real estate and lending, do you think they're going to be able to evolve their approach to outline and leverage the 5 principles that you outlined, which was, I think, safety, transparency, choice, collaboration, and empowerment? Or do you think, we're just going to always do what we always do and kind of just stay in our own lane? Do you think we can evolve, I guess is the question.
I think some will and certainly can, but I think many will continue to do things the way they've always done them. And it's a lot because they're looking through their own lens. One of the things I talk about a lot in presentations is like being careful of applying the golden rule in business because, it's great that we want to treat others the way that we would want to be treated. But what if those individuals don't want to be treated the same way that you would want to be treated, And so I think it's really hard to realize like, someone's looking through a different lens than I am. And so I need to approach this in a different way. And so that's why I am really passionate about education with real estate agents and in the housing industry overall. The more that people understand that shift, the more that they can start making those adjustments. But it does require that they step outside their comfort zone. And so a lot of people are not going to feel comfortable with making that transition. And a lot of people, want to be like angry about that shift in some ways, and so it's a frustrating thing sometimes to see people relate differently than you do about an industry. But I know a lot of people that are really making huge strides towards building those, that trust in this market, adopting new technology to build trust and transparency. And so I'm hopeful overall.
Yeah, I am as well. And I want to be really clear, and then we can wrap it up, maybe your final thoughts too. But what Kristin wrote about and what we're talking about, we're not asking you to change your sales pitch to include these principles. Not at all. We're asking that to be you and be your brand, not just leverage these techniques to be a better salesperson. We want the professionals to be transparent in general because that's who they are and that's how they want to communicate, and to provide choice and collaboration. A simple trick with collaboration, one of our top originators, he's a millennial. It's so simple. All the best inventions are. Started doing this and I'm like, man, that's so good. So when something goes into contract and somebody buys a house, he starts a group text message. It sounds so simple, but people don't do this with the realtor involved and the consumer and himself. Collaboration, like we're working together towards this common goal. And so a couple things are happening there. The conversation, you talked about expectations and setting proper expectations and being clear. Everybody's on that group text and that group chat. And so everybody knows, appraisal, inspection, and the next steps moving forward. I think that's such a brilliant strategy and so easy to do. Obviously, if you need to have a private conversation with the client, you can do that. But for the overarching theme for the next 20, 30 days, however long that transaction is, simple takeaway, group text message with everybody involved. Start doing that and watch the communication in your business change. It's a really good takeaway. So
love that.
Yeah.
That's so cool. And one thing, it doesn't have to be a huge shift like you're saying. These can be really simple changes that really help people feel safe and help people feel that they have choice and transparency. You don't have to be, making a shift towards a ton of technology. I'm a big fan of technology, but if you're just, meeting with them and any other decision makers at the beginning of the process and laying out, this is what the home buying process looks like, answering all of their questions, being accessible, like all of those things are really easy things that you can still be yourself, your brand, but really appeal to that element within this generation without making huge adjustments. So.
Love it. Well, thanks again for taking time with us. I appreciate it. This is like sales rally time of the year. So if your company is having one, definitely reach out to Kristin. I can't think of a better speaker to have at your sales rally. And we'll put your link in the comment section below. Thanks again. If you have questions for Kristin or I, put them in the comment section. I know she's busy, but we'll try to make sure that one of us responds. So we'll see you guys next week.